Mr. Investor Lot, welcome back to the channel, baby. Today we're going to be talking about none other than Bionano Genomics. In the last couple days, it's been rallying quite a lot. So it went up 16.5% yesterday. Over the last 5 days, it's up 26.2%. However, from the most recent lows of November, I think it was at $1.26 around there, it's gone up around 56%. So in this video, I want to talk about Professor's comments and an email he sent me who is using the Sapphire system. He actually has 2 Sapphires at the moment. A month ago, he released a paper saying, why optical genome mapping is so important to clinical genetic laboratories. Also an update yesterday about prenatal applications and a study that came out. And also there was a paper that came out in September, October time, and I think a few of us may have missed it, but it was on neuroblastoma and it was coming out of the UK, and there were some interesting comments surrounding the Sapphire system. Before we get into this video, if you could please hit the like button, drop me some comments down below, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the channel. We're going to be bringing out a lot more content. Remember, none of this is financial advice, it's for entertainment only. Said, I have not bought any more shares of Bionano Genomics. I still hold my shares. Some other YouTubers that may have shown you for months and months about Bionano Genomics, they already sold out a long time ago. I'm still holding 5,400 shares. Before the reverse split, I had 54,000 shares. And it's unfortunate it's reverse split and they continue to dilute us. And what we're waiting for right now is for them to create a profitable business model in which they can get, a high volume of usage for the Sapphire system and the reagents, and basically return money to the investor, because when we invest into companies, we expect returns. In the meantime, since I haven't been buying any more stock in BNGO and I've just been waiting and holding my position, currently I'm down 78%. I was down like 90% at one point, but now I'm down around about 78%. I was actually up about 20% at one point, which was pretty nice on a big position. In the meantime, I was going over some old emails and I was looking at the current updates from Adam C. Smith. So he is an assistant professor coming out of Toronto in Canada. I did him earlier on in June this year. He told me they currently are projecting the usage of around about 500 chips, 1,500 flow cells per year with the Sapphire system. And he was awarded a Grand Challenge grant recently to support development of optical genome mapping. This is for use in myeloma. The grant was around $2 million US. As you can see here, it says Dr. Adam Smith will use the new technology of optical genome scanning to improve diagnostic testing. I followed up with him and I was speaking about, Canada converting over to optical genome mapping workflow. I wanted to know about the cost as well. So Adam told me back then there was 20 to 30 cytogenetic laboratories in Canada, and he knows many are or have already purchased Sapphires. So there's at least 10 Sapphire systems installed in diagnostic labs within Canada. And due to the number of applications and evidence continues to grow, he believes that the number of Sapphires installed will continue to grow. So he thinks that most of these cytogenetic labs will go over to optical genome mapping in the next 2 years. The ones that he currently works with or works for is UHN, University Health Network, and it's officially 4 hospitals. So it's Toronto General, Princess Margaret, Toronto Western, and Toronto Rehab. Spoke about the cost of optical genome mapping. I told him that, within the NHS, I've emailed some people there and they told me that it was quite expensive. They felt optical genome mapping was expensive. For them in Canada, optical genome mapping is cost comparable to doing a karyotype and 1 FISH test. So it's about average if you take in all our karyotyping and reflex FISH testing. It's about even. He said worldwide, for example in Turkey, he said a lot of the countries have unrealistic low reimbursement for karyotyping and probably subsidize it in other ways. They don't incorporate the cost of technologist salaries into the cost of karyotyping services. But in Turkey, where he was recently, in June, he said they do a karyotype for about $100 US there because the labor cost is quite low for them. He thinks, however, if you take a look at Holland, Belgium and Spain, they're all moving to optical genome mapping, and they're moving optical genome mapping into frontline standards practice. So price isn't the only consideration, it's also clinical utility. He said if you look at the overall cost to do everything the optical genome mapping can do with the conventional technology they have, so karyotyping, FISH, microarray, it is definitely cheaper to do optical genome mapping. He also said he wants to upgrade to the new machine, the Stratus, probably in 2024. They've got sufficient capacity at the moment with 2 Sapphires, but moving up to the Stratus makes a lot of sense. We then went to speak on about costs outside of the US and how to get worldwide adoption in terms of optical genome mapping. He said he doesn't know if the cost will ever go down to $100, but if you can get it down to $250, it will make a huge difference for adoption. What he thinks is going to happen is that Canada, US, and Europe adoption will be speedy. In around 18 to 24 months, they'll have widespread adoption in those places. Cytogenetics people are really excited about optical genome mapping. So right now, it's been since June, half a year. So we should be seeing, he stated, round about a year and a half to 2 years, he believes that there will be widespread adoption across Canada, US, and Europe. So more recently, in the last few months, Adam Smith has put out that cytogenetics is a science, not a technique. Why optical genome mapping is so important to clinical genetic laboratories. He stated that they anticipate that optical genome mapping and possibly other long-read technologies could enable next-generation cytogenetics within a next generation of cytogeneticists and years of new cytogenetic insights. They believe that optical genome mapping will be particularly useful for hematological malignancies. And Adam also believes that next generation sequencing really misses the structural variation piece of the puzzle when it comes to cancer in terms of leukemia, lymphoma. Part of NHS England's Accelerating Genomic Medicine within the National Health Service stated that they believe that long-read sequencing and optical genome mapping will be explored over the next few years to look at the part of the genome that cannot easily be sequenced by other techniques. For example, methylation in brain cancers. The 31st of October 2023 was this article coming out of the UK. The use of optical genome mapping to detect structural variants in neuroblastoma. So in terms of geographics, it came out of the north of England. It was coming out of Wolfson Childhood Cancer Centre. It also came out of Newcastle Genetics Laboratory and Great North Children's Hospital, all based in Newcastle. The background of the study stated that around 15% of pediatric cancer deaths are caused by neuroblastoma. It's the most common extracranial solid tumor in children. Some of the more common neuroblastoma symptoms that children have is lumps in the chest or abdomen area, pain, weight loss, fatigue, breathing problems, and they can easily bruise or bleed. So within this study, they stated they used Bionano Sapphire's instrument, and they analyzed 5 neuroblastoma cell lines and 2 neuroblastoma tumors using optical genome mapping with the Sapphire system. The conclusions they had, results they found, is that optical genome mapping can reliably detect clinically significant structural and copy number variations in a single test. Optical genome mapping may prove to be more time and cost effective than the current standard cytogenetic techniques for neuroblastoma. And if we scroll down to the discussion section, you can see that they state that optical genome mapping takes about 3 days protocol, and then it has an additional 2 days for running the chip and pipeline analysis, 5 days. In comparison to another technology, SMP arrays take around 1 week to return results. And in terms of the NHS, they're currently using whole genome sequencing, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks to return results. They've stated is that Bionano reagents and materials are expensive, although the cost of optical genome mapping may be less than the combination of multiple genetic tests. We've shown that a limitation of optical genome mapping is accurate ploidy detection, and therefore FISH or SMP array may still be needed. However, they said in contrast, our preliminary data on 2 NB tumors suggest that it may be superior to whole genome sequencing for accurate structural variation detection. For me, the only criticism that I'd have on this test is obviously the low sample numbers. They've only looked at 5 neuroblastoma cell lines and only 2 neuroblastoma tumors analyzed. So it's a particularly really small sample size. They concluded that it is useful adjunction to standard genetic analysis of neuroblastoma and should be further evaluated in a larger comparative study in the future. In terms of acknowledgements as well, I just wanted to show you this. They stated that samples and data used in this study were provided by Vivo Biobank, supported by Cancer Research UK and Blood Cancer UK. Funding was also provided, so just this to bear in mind too, by the Sir Bobby Robson Foundation. Bionano Genomics funded this study too. So always keep an eye out as well for who's funding it and see if there's any conflicts of interest in terms of, funders. If they're stating that in terms of, NHS England's whole genome sequencing, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get your results back. So over in Sweden, for example, the Swedish Pediatric Association's section for pediatric hematology and oncology were recommending that they believe whole genome sequencing should be a part of clinical routine at diagnosis for all childhood cancer patients. In Singapore, they were also running a lot of whole genome sequences on roughly they want to do around 1 million Singaporeans so they can explore precision medicine. So the question that remains for Bionano Genomics investors is, are Bionano Genomics going to be able to become profitable as a business? If they are able to return money to the investor as well and find a way to reduce their expenses, to actually reduce as well the cost of some of the reagents and manage to get it into routine clinical work, that is where Bionano Genomics can explore its full potential as a company. Because at the moment, they're still burning cash. There's been a mass exodus with only 42 institutional investors there. There's 73% of institutional investors have left. So you can see a mass exodus, including Vanguard. More recently, the Vanguard group has exited all positions. All of these red positions are exits. So you can see it's a mass exodus of of nearly 75% of all institutions that had shares in Bionano Genomics. Let me know your thoughts and feelings if you found any more interesting research or emailed any scientists or professors that are using the Sapphire system and what they believe it will be able to do. We're still eagerly awaiting for large-scale adoption, reduced expenses, and profitability. Please remember, none of this is financial advice or entertainment only. Want to ask me any questions, just drop it in the comments below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video. Mr. Lot, over and out, baby.